Hello and welcome to this month paint job series of guides. This month will be a bit weird. Kind of a reward really for I don't know, for the support you guys have given me on Patreon by joining it, and you're gonna get a lot more models painted this time. It's gonna happen only this month, but I hope you're gonna enjoy this. You know, there's a lot of hype around these vampire guys and around the new coming vampires and Curse City. So I thought, why not? Why not paint a bunch of these guys so people can appreciate them? So I thought I would do it. The way these guides are gonna be structured is that I am gonna be painting the model from start to finish every guide. So you're gonna be having 4 guides for at least this particular series of guides, because we're gonna have the tabletop one and the getting out and the 75 mil as well. But for these guides, you're gonna have 4 guides, one for each model of this Dire Chasm box, and it's gonna be the full paint job. So the reason why I base coated the model was to save time, so I can tell you guys what base coats I used, and I don't have to show it or record myself doing it, and we can just get into the fun part of the painting, which is a shading and a lighting. So let's start from this dude, which I don't know the name of, but it doesn't matter. And we start from the skin tone. So the skin tone was base coated using warm gray from AK, to which I have added a very little amount of olive green and black. So I created the color you can see here on the palette. It's a very gray green, and this is gonna be the base coat for the paint job. From here forward, since the skin tone is gonna be somewhat grayish, we can play around with inks quite a bit here to give color to the model. I'll show you what I mean very soon. What I'm going to be doing for starters is working on the shadows, because this is the mid-tone of the skin, so we need shadows for it. So what I'm going to be doing is getting my base coat color. I'm going to be adding a touch of black to it to darken it. I'm not adding another color yet because I know I will be glazing some inks later, so I just need darkness. I don't need hue right now. I just need a darker tone for my shadows. So we have this darkened down mid-tone, and I'm gonna go ahead and place it in all of the areas of shadows, which in these cases would be, you know, the muscles, like here, see? We are gonna create definition. So underneath the cheekbones, for example, he's a vampire. So he has very defined cheekbones in the ears, the sides of the forehead, underneath the eyebrows. And this is basically a deluxe version of the tabletop paint job we did a couple of months ago, where we used the Grisaille to create a paint job and then glaze the colors on as we went. So we're going to be working with these shades of green-gray to place the shadows. As you can see, I'm placing it underneath the chest because it's a very dark area. We can also kind of glaze it in onto this area here. We can always get our mid-tone back, and we will in the case of the belly, but I just want to darken the area for now. The side of the neck here, you see the light is coming from the front, so we're imagining the shadows, and since he's hunched over, he's gonna be casting a shadow on himself in a way. Underneath the arm here, we can paint pretty much the entire area with this color, and then we can redefine it again when we go back to the mid-tone to clean up and add some light in there with the mid-tone. So underneath the arms like this, we can have this shade. And we can just slowly build up our shadow, completely ignoring color for the moment. I'm doing this on this vampire because his skin tone is supposed to be grayish, but you can do this with any kind of painting really, as long as you have clear ideas of what you want to achieve. So for now I'm just defining the volumes, getting all of these nice areas shaded. I am placing the color a bit more strongly in the recesses, and then I am sorta layering it towards the recess so I can get more of a sense of volume. You can see there, or also here. I'm creating an in-between tone already by layering. And this is gonna help blending as well as creating a more interesting and compelling paint job. Again, we have basically no color here. It's a gray, basically, with a bit of green in it, yes, but almost none of it, and black added to it. We will be introducing color very soon when we start using our inks to create some color. So for now, I'm just looking for value and volume, which are the two most important parts of a paint job. When you're painting, the two things you should always be more worried about is value and volume. Those two will give you what you need for a beautiful paint job. So value is, of course, brightness and the contrast between shadow and light. And volume is the interpretation of the object in such a way that it conveys 3D-ness. In the case of mini painting, we have an easier time because the volume is already sculpted, so we just need to interpret it. If we were 2D painters, we would have to come up with the volume ourselves, and that's why 2D painting is very difficult. Not more or less than mini painting, but it's difficult in a particular way, because the understanding of volume and anatomy needs to be much higher than what we need in our painting. So we're going to be, you can see we're still adding these shadows. If I make a mistake, if I feel like a shadow is too strong, it does not matter because we're going to go back to our mid-tone in just a minute to clean it up and get the blend and everything we need to define our boy. Okay. The model is already gaining a lot of quality just because of these different lines we have painted, and we don't even have an highlight yet, so we only have two colors present right now. We don't even have highlights, so when we place those, the skin is gonna pop. For now though, I'm just working on interpreting this sharp muscle that he has. You can see that I'm placing the shadow in on the bottom of volumes and in the recesses. Underneath the chin, that's very important. Lots of people forget about the area underneath the chin. It should be dark. Okay, with this done, we can go and work with our mid-tone again. We can blend. and also clean up a few things. For example, in the belly area, we completely covered it in shadow, but we do need to interpret the volumes anyway, so we're going to use the mid-tone as an highlight in this case. So we're going to be painting the top of the muscle with this mid-tone color and treating it basically like an highlight. That in all of these areas where we have a bit of a stark line separating shadow and light, I am just layering my mid-tone so that it somewhat covers the shadow, but not fully, so it creates that nice little blend. Here on the arm too, you can do little lines, you can do little dots if you want, like for example here, I can place the layer like a dot to create a noise to blend the two colors together. And of course, as we said earlier, we're going to be highlighting the muscles here with our mid-tone. Okay. I think we can start working with our inks. So let me get... We're going to be getting Deep Violet from Liquitex. And we're going to be having a bit of fun now. So with Deep Violet... So inks have a property, which is very difficult to explain, but I have to because of the guide. Inks don't really change the value of what they are applied on, provided they are applied thinly enough, which means that if you have a shadow and an highlight, and you apply an ink on top of it, it's not going to modify much the value of the two colors, but it's going to change their color. So if you have gray and black, and you apply a color on top of it through an ink, the gray will remain gray, and the black will remain black, but they both will acquire a ink tint based on what color you used. We're going to make use of this property to work on these grays and give them color. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be thinning the ink. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, we're back. But yeah, we're going to be thinning our purple quite a lot. I'm going to be adding a touch of black to make it a little bit darker. Like this. And then I'm going to thin it even more. We want this to be extremely thin. Inks have a lot of power to them. You can see how thin it is on my thumbnail. I have very little ink on the brush, very little ink, and it's very thin. And now we're going to be glazing this ink onto the skin tone, directing the color in the shadows. So we're going to leave our mid-tone in this grayish tint, but we will be playing around with the color by having some of this purple in the shadows and over some of the mid-tone. So basically I'm using this ink to give another layer of blending as well as creating an interesting color to work with. need more than one layer. But it's important to keep the paint thin and work it over time progressively rather than do one big strong glaze. Because if you do that, it's gonna look not very good, unfortunately. So I'm just applying this color here over my skin tone. This is just to create the illusion that the skin has more colors, you know, more hues in it. So we have the greenish gray. We now have the purple. We're soon going to be having a blue and then yellow. So there's going to be a lot of colors in the skin, which are going to be working pretty nicely with each other. Again, if we ever feel like the ink has overstepped its boundary or hasn't covered nicely or has created a bit of a stain, we can go back to the mid-tone and clean it up. We're not ruining the paint job in any way. Like we can always clean up what we did. Or if we want more saturation, we can always reinforce it. Like for example here, it might be nice to have slightly more color. And the point here is subtlety. We don't really want to make this skin tone look purple. We want it to be pale and dead. This purple here is just acting as a almost random hue that's going to create a very fancy illusion and color. So we're gonna keep it there. And for now, I am happy with it. We might want to add more later, but for now I'm okay. I'm gonna be highlighting the skin now using Sky Blue from Vallejo Model Color. It's a blue, it's a light blue. And it's gonna work very nicely in highlighting our skin. Because we want a cold color to highlight. So I'm gonna be adding some of this Sky Blue to my original base coat mix. I'm gonna be thinning it quite a bit. And we're gonna build up the light now. So this is our highlight. We had our mid-tone, now we got our light. So I am letting the mid-tone exist in the middle. So I'm going to be highlighting the top of these muscles. But I do want my gray to still exist. It's very important that we don't lose it. So I'm imagining the light hitting the model. The paint is not too thin, but I have almost none on the brush. It's important because if I have very little paint on the brush, I can control very exactly where I place it. And if I want the light to be stronger, all I gotta do is apply more paint. Let it dry, of course, first, and then apply more paint. Doing so will reinforce the layer, because the paint is thinned down to layer consistency, which means it doesn't really cover fully in one pass. So more passes will give me more opacity and more light. So here on the face, I'm insisting a bit more with this light, because I wanted to really frame the face, but also the shoulder here could use a bit more light. So I'm just going to be painting the light. You can see very gently applying the paint, pretty much drawing the light there. We can have a bit of light also on this hand. You can see that if I zoom in, you can start to see all of the colors interacting, right? We do need cleanup, of course, but it's getting there. Okay, we can do our strongest light now using Ice Yellow from AK. We're going to be placing this color in its purity. And we're going to be focusing it mostly on the face. And let me thin it a bit more. Again, layer consistency. Let me show you the consistency on my thumb. You see it. The paint is very drawy. As we go and move farther away from the face, I'm having less and less and less of this light. So I'm still painting it. I'm just keeping the highlights very, very small, because I want the contrast to slowly push towards the face. Okay. Feel like I'm pretty happy with the skin tone. We can highlight. I forgot about the back here. I apologize. We need to highlight also these back here. I'm using the previous highlights, not the strongest ice yellow one. The light blue. And I'm applying it on the muscle here. As you notice, by keeping the paint thin, I am blending as I place the paint. I don't need to take a step to blend, you know? Because I'm not sketching right now. That's another way of painting that I use. But in this specific paint job, I'm not sketching. I know where the light goes, so I'm just placing it. I don't have to wonder. The model is sculpted really nicely, and it's very defined. So it basically screams for where the light needs to go. So because of that, I don't need to worry much about sketching the colors to see if stuff works, because I know it does. So I'm just going to paint it. And in using these thin layers and reinforcing them if needed over time, rather than just blocking the color in, and always pushing the pigment towards where I want the light to be strongest, I get myself basically a perfect blend without any effort. Also, the colors are not much different in value, so that simplifies the blending. They are different in warmth. We had a green-gray, which was a warmish color. We have a purple, which is a cold color in the shadows, and then we had another color in the first light with the blue, and then a warm color in the last highlight. So we have cold, warm, cold, warm. We have 4 colors on this skin tone, and they go back and forth between cold and warm. Doing this creates a lot of contrast in colors, which pushes the volumes further than normal. So I don't need to go much brighter with my highlights, because my color contrast is helping with the contrast, and I don't need that much brightness. Okay, so with this done, we can move on to let's do it on metallic silver. For the silver, I'm just gonna be using black. Black with a little bit of warm gray. Our mid-tone is a gray, which we have already painted. The mid-tone of the silver was created with a mix of warm gray and black. I am just remixing the gray, just darker this time. I'm adding a touch of purple to it, just a touch, you know, to keep in line with the rest of the paint job. And I'm gonna be using this color to get my shadows in. So the shoulder pad is rounded, so the strongest light will probably coincide with the lights we have on the shoulders. The bracer here is probably going to have a shadow here because of how the light is interacting with the model. And we're going to have a light here, because if the light is coming from the left, it's hitting this neck part, but all of this will be in shadow. So we can darken it. And now we are sketching a bit again. In the case here, we're going to be having a darker color. We're going to be the knee here, it's creating a pyramidal shape. So if the light is hitting this side very strongly, there must be a shadow on the opposite side. Okay, let's blend. To blend, I'm just gonna go back to my original gray mix. And I'm going to be gently, the same way I paint the eyelets on the skin, through layering, very careful, very gentle, almost no paint on the brush, just taking the paint from the shadow towards the light to blend. Areas like the knee here, where it's very difficult to do a proper brush stroke, I'm gonna be stippling the blend. So on the separation between the two colors, I'm just gonna place the gray, like so. That's gonna help with the blending quite a bit. Okay. With this done, we can start highlighting. And we don't really need to change our color scheme much. We can just use the light blue, sky blue, add it to our gray, mid-tone, and we can sketch our lights with this color here. Again, keeping the paint very thin. You can see how thin it is on my thumb, right? It's very thin. I almost have none of it on the brush, and I'm just going to be placing it with random, very small and random crisscross strokes. The reason why I'm doing this, it's because I want to create a texture on this armor. I don't want to do a fully super smoothly blended non-metallic, because I don't think it's needed on a model like this. I would rather have a more antique buttered metal. And of course, after it dries the first time, we can reinforce it because the paint, as we established, it's thin, so it doesn't have full opacity when you place it the first time. So thanks to this, we can create a blend by simply just insisting on replacing the very same color multiple times over an area. So we can get that sense of natural light happening. see that I kept moving between details and I kept doing these random stippling that I'm doing here on the neck with the very same paint. I have not added white or any other paint to the mix, same exact mixture, but the more I did this, the lighter it was looking. And that's because, again, it's very important, paint, unless it's super thick, never really covers fully opaque. Even when it feels like it is, it's not, especially light colors. Light colors need several layers to really pop, regardless of what you're painting them on. So I'm taking advantage of that in my lights to create a nice, beautiful gradient. I don't know if I can show you, but you can see I am creating a gradient between the colors that really gives the sense of light. And I'm doing this just by using the very same color. So I don't need to create complicated mixes, just 1, 2, 3 step. But by doing this and progressively having less and less area of coverage as I do this stippling, I am creating hundreds of colors because sometimes it dries a bit more opaque, other times it doesn't. It creates a glaze here, a blend there, a stipple. It does create a nice, believable effect. So now we can move on to our yellow. And we can do exactly the same thing. I'm going to thin it, again, quite a bit. And we're going to be painting the light inside of the lights we already have. Try to zoom in a bit more for you so maybe you can see this effect happening a little bit more. Hopefully I don't go off camera. Okay. And now to separate from the skin tone our metallic, because right now our highest value is ice yellow, but non-metallic metal is the item on a model that needs to have the highest value on the composition. Otherwise, it doesn't look quite as metallic. Which means that if I had used ice yellow as the strongest highlight for the skin, my ice yellow in the non-metallic will never quite make it look metallic because there is the same light happening on both, but metal reflects light more sharply than skin does. So because of that, we needed to work with the values in order to make our non-metallic look non-metallic. So all of this to say that I'm just going to be using white now. With pure white, I'm going to be doing a bunch of... I don't need to go much big with my highlights. I just need to have this white present on my non-metallic to make it feel like a metal. Because it needs to have more light in it than the skin tone. So you can see that didn't need much. We just did a little bit of white there and it got us where we want to be. By the same token, if our... Sorry, I might not be in focus. 1 second. Okay, sorry. By the same token, if our darkest shadow on the skin tone is that dark purple, our darkest shadow on the metallic needs to be darker than that. So we're going to be using pure black now. I am thinning it quite a bit. And we're going to be reinforcing some of the shadows to have that slightly stronger contrast that's going to help make our metallics look even more metallic. Okay. So we're good with that. Let's do the wings. Why not? Why not? So I want the wings to be dark purple in the back. So I'm just mixing the purple ink with the black. So the outer part of the wings is going to be extremely dark. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry and then do another coat. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so we're back. The purple has dried. I took the moment also to push slightly the ice yellow highlights on the skin tone. So the same thing we did before with skin tone that you saw me do, I just redid it to get more coverage out of the ice yellow, out of the skin. You can see it a little bit. So let's do the back of the you know, the wings, that's the word. So I'm gonna be using the sky blue color, and I'm gonna be adding it to our original dark purple that we had used for our wings. I am thinning it quite a bit, and I'm going to highlight the upper part of the wings. I would like this to be a bit pinkier, so let me add a bit ice yellow as well. Okay. So we're just going to be painting this color in, following the volume. The wing is folding almost, so the upper part of it will be catching some light. I am painting this highlight, doing a lot of lines to create an even more sense of a leathery kind of skin. I don't want this to be fully blended or smooth. I want this to be very rough, actually, like a texture. So the highlight is being built up through this use of lines. So it looks like it's more rugged. There we go. I'm gonna show you this wing and then do the other one off camera, so we don't make the video any longer than it should be. But I'm gonna be adding more ice yellow, and we're gonna be doing one last highlight. Again, same thing in the small in the inner part of the wing of the highlight that we already have. I'm gonna be doing the very same thing one more time. So a bunch of lines next to each other, many lines, very, very thin. I'm gonna be doing the very same thing. Actually, before I do that though, I want to remix my dark purple. 1 second. And I want to kind of wash it. Not really wash it, but I want to filter over the whole wing with it. So with a very, 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 very thin mixture, I'm going over the whole wing. Like a glaze. This is a... When you use a glaze to modify colors like this, it's a filter over a big area. But I felt like the there was a bit too much contrast happening. I don't want to push too much attention towards the wing, so I lowered the highlights just a little bit so that they don't attract too much attention. Do you see? Okay, I'm going to do the very same thing on this other side, and then we're going to be doing the inner side together. Actually, it's even better if we do the inner side and then I do everything at once. So, let's do the inner side. We have the base coat of the skin tone, which was this greenish gray that we had. I'm just going to be adding a little bit of ice yellow to it to make it slightly brighter. And with this color, I'm going to pick out the various leathery surfaces that are in the wing. Okay. We can go even a little bit brighter by adding a touch more ice yellow. And do one more highlight inside of the ones we have to really pick out the strongest shapes. Okay, and then we're going to be filtering. So I'm going to be picking out another ink. A magenta this time. Quadristone... magenta from Liquitex. If I can open it, okay. Now, I don't want this magenta because it's a bit too powerful. So we are going to be... We're going to be picking out our magenta, add a bit of purple to it to darken it and purpley it a bit more. We're going to thin it quite a bit. And then we're going to take this color from sort of the middle of the wing toward the end of it. Like this, see? And then with a clean brush, so I'm going to be washing the brush. The brush is now clean and I use the paper towel to fully remove water from it. I am going to be extending the paint out with a technique called feathering. Okay, we're gonna let it dry and then do it one more time and we should be good. Takes a minute for inks to dry. They dry a little bit slower than acrylics do because they have a lot of retardant in them, but it's fine. Okay, same thing. We take the paint and we push it towards the start of the wing. We clean the brush we clean the brush in the water and then on a paper towel, and then we extend the edge of where we first laid the brush onto the model. We place it there and we, with a zigzag movement, we extend the paint out so that it blends out. There we go. All right, let me finish the other wing and both wings actually, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so we're done with the wings. I also taken the liberty to base coat the fingers and the end of the arm in a black. And the reason why I'm doing this, it's mostly for contrast. So I'm just gonna quickly blend these black with the mid-tone of the skin, using, of course, the mid-tone, the green-gray. Just gonna blend these two together real quickly. And after doing this, we can work on the golds and the other details. So now that we have the black painted in onto the fingers, we can highlight them if we want by adding a bit of, you remember our dark purple, right? We can add some ice yellow to it to get ourselves more of a gray purple, and we can use it to just gently highlight these wings here. Okay. Let's work on the golds. The golds have been base coated with a mix of English uniform and black. Very simple. So now with pure English uniform, we're going to be working on sketching in the mid-zone. This is one of the rare cases on the model where I actually started from a shadow. 1 second. Okay, so with our English uniform, we can sketch in our base coat for the mid-tone for our golds. We're going to be following the highlights that we have already painted on the metallics around it. So for example, here on the shoulder, I'm going to be having more of the mid-tone. Show next to the strong highlight for the silver. Can be thinning the color a bit more. Okay. Same thing happens on the belt. The light is coming from this direction, so our belt is going to be catching quite a bit of light in this area here, for example. Okay, we can highlight adding sky blue. Doing as before, follow into the light of the previous metals that we painted. Then once more with ice yellow to really get that strong gold effect. This is more of an antique gold. We haven't really used the yellows of oranges. We have used an ochre to create it. So it's going to look more like a brass really than a gold. But it is absolutely fine because this is an undead character. So he looks like a brute, so I don't expect him to have any fancy armor. The other guys look more refined, so I think the golds and the metals on them are gonna be cleaner than the ones we have on this dude, but I like to imagine this guy to be rough. I can work a little bit more in texturing the shoulder pad here. Okay. I think we're good with that. So next up, we can work on the... Well, let's finish... yeah, let's do the face. Let's finish the face. So, for the base, I had used a blue-green, a teal, basically, which I mixed from anthracite gray of AK and ocean blue. Sorry, and dark green from AK. So these are the two colors. I can remix it for you. So you can see that we have these two colors mixed together and they create this nice grayish color, this teal color. And I'm going to be using the same color that I used for the base as a base coat, also for the hair. Although the hairs are going to go much brighter, but this works out nicely as a shadow for them. It's fine. I can always clean up the mistakes I'm doing. As I paint the area, I'm of course getting some of the paint in the areas around this, but that's not a problem. Okay, with this base coat placed, I can use, guess what, sky blue to highlight. I need to let it dry though, before I do that. So while I wait for the sky blue to dry, I might as well just work on getting my metals cleaned up here. Well, while that dries, let's quickly do the mace. So the mace is base coated in a darker gray than the rest of the armor is. So we don't really need to do too much on the mace. We can just start from black and add some sky blue to it, because we can keep this mace to be like a blackish color. So we can add sky blue to it to light it up a little bit. And with this light cold gray, we can paint our first highlight, which would be here. Okay. Wherever we need a blend, we can thin this color out quite a bit. Clean the brush on a paper towel, and then take the very same color of the highlight from the shadow towards where we placed our highlight. Doing so will give us more of a blend, creating a gradient. Of course, we can use ice yellow to do the next highlight. Again, keeping the paint very thin. You can see on my finger how thin it is. It's very thin. I almost have none on the brush because I need control of it. And again, same as before, if we want to blend a bit more, we can thin this paint, this ice yellow, a little bit more, and we can very gently drag it towards where we painted it from the previous highlight into the new one. Like this. And then with pure white, we can do our strongest, very strongest glints of light. For example, up here, a little dot here in the sphere. The edge there is going to catch a lot of light. We're good with our weapon, I think. Okay, our hairs have dried, so we can go back to them. I will need to work on this side of the weapon, but I'll do it off camera, because it's basically the same as the front. So, with our light sky blue teal mix, we're gonna be painting the hairs pretty much again, avoiding the recesses. And then we can add ice yellow, and we can use this color to strengthen the highlights on the hair towards the front. And then with pure ice yellow, there we go. Let's paint the eyes. The eyes are going to be very simple because they're basically two dots. I think I'm going to paint them. I don't know. I don't know. I could paint them white, but that would be boring. Would it be boring? Let's do ice yellow. Like a lot of ice yellow with a touch of magenta added to it. So almost white, but not quite. We can also add white to it if you want. So almost white, but not really quite. And Just gonna paint the eye in. There we go. It's a vibrant color, even though it's a white. It's a vibrant color, not just white. We can do the teeth. For the teeth, I'm just gonna be doing, adding a bit of English uniform to ice yellow. Just to have that fang color. We can use black to blackline, separate the mouth from the teeth. This is a bit of an obnoxious blackline to do, but and then with ice yellow, we can highlight the teeth. There we go. Got the face painted up. All right, so couple more things left. We have the trousers and the leather boots. The other trinkets that he has, I'll be painting off camera, and I will be showing how I paint them once on a future model. But yeah, so let's do the pants. For the pants, I can use anthracite gray. They are base coated in a black, of course, so I can use anthracite gray to sketch in the light. Like so. We can go back to our black, which I ran out of. We can use our black to blend by thinning the black out. We can blend back into black by basically glazing over it. It looks like I have completely deleted the highlight, but I haven't. And now back to anthracite gray. We can thin it a little bit more and redo the highlight inside of the area of our previous light. So we turned our anthracite gray into an even darker color by glazing black over it. Chimera black is perfect for glazing. Usually glazing black is a tough thing to do, but Chimera black really does its job. So we can now repaint our anthracite gray inside of the area. There we go. And then we can add some sky blue to anthracite gray to do one more highlight. Of course, we're going to thin it so it flows properly and it doesn't cover too much, but instead blends itself. I'm going to start picking out all of the ridges in these pens. You see very, very small lines next to each other to build up the light in a noisy, textury kind of way, rather than blocking in the line, because if you block in the line, it never really works out, it never looks blended, and it takes forever to clean up. But if instead you do these lines, following the volume you're painting in its roundedness, it looks more natural and way more beautiful. And then lastly, we can highlight one more time with ice yellow added to the mix. Again, thinned out to layer consistency. Okay, let's do the boots. For the boots, I started from a brown-red base coat. The resulting mix of flat earth from Vallejo model color and burnt red from AK and black. I'll mix it again. Flat earth, bit of burnt red and black. I'm mixing a much darker color this time because I need to sketch in the shadows. So with this darker color, I'm gonna be adding just a little bit more of this, okay? A bit more red too. Okay. With this dark brown, very, very dark brown. If you have a brown, of course, feel free to use it. Like if you have scrag brown for base coat and green oxide for shadows, you can do it. You don't have to follow exactly the colors I use. What matters is that you follow the light placement and the application, right? So with this thinner paint, I'm gonna go around the leathers and shade them. I can go a little bit darker than this. Just gently drawing the shadow. Thinning the paint out a bit to get it to blend a bit more. Okay. And now we can highlight. So we can use flat earth pure flat earth. Thin it out a bit. And we're gonna be having fun texturing these boots, because of course we have textured the metal, so we should probably texture the boots as well. And the way I'm texturing them is just by adding a bunch of random dots and lines, scribbles really, onto the color. Right now it's very difficult to notice because these highlight I'm using is not much different from the original base coat. You will see soon when we do the next highlight, but here in the shadow you can see it a bit more. We can add sky blue to our flat earth. Not too much, but... and then we can thin it out. Okay, and we're good. So I have a couple more details to paint, but as I said, I will be doing it off camera, so we can tackle these details on other models. Last thing is the base. I'm gonna do the base for this dude, and yeah, let's do that. So I started from the same teal that I mixed for the base coat of the hairs, and from that teal, I of course need this to be darker and a different color than the teal from the hairs. So I can add black to this teal base coat, and we can use this black after I have thinned it a little bit. We can use it to kinda paint around the base with almost a random application of paint in big dots. The paint is very thin, not thin enough for it to flood the model or anything, but it's like slightly thinner than a layer consistency would be. And I'm applying it a bit all over, as you can see. Now I am going back to the original base coat, and I'm gonna redo the same exact thing. A bit smaller. Doing this creates overlap between the layers, and it creates a sense of something happening in the colors, right? Okay, and we can of course agilite all of these things. I'm gonna just be adding white. I don't really need to change the temperature much. I just need to add white to the original teal. Okay, with that done, we can work on the sides, on the side rock. Those are gonna be a gray basically, so we can use our any gray really. We can add some a slight amount of flat earth to it, and base coat the sides like so. This is too light. Let me darken it up a little bit. I'm running out of space on the palette, but it's a little bit darker again. We can also have a bit more of a brown red hue to it as we darken it out. You can see I'm doing a very noisy brushstroke here. Since I'm working on a ground texture, I'm not looking for a nice clean shadow and light, but I want them to kind of merge together a bit randomly because it is a ground rocky texture, so it needs to be very random. It doesn't have to look clean. The opposite, actually. As long as there is an intention in what you do, you don't need to blend. You just need to look good, really. Okay, so with this we're done. We can work on the candelabra, I guess. We can do... We can add a bit of English uniform to our very dark base color that we had used. We can base coat it with this color. We can go darker by... I'm using the same shadow color I had used on the leather. Well, we can start working on the volumes a bit more, but... And then we can go slightly lighter by adding white. Don't really want to have too much contrast happening on here. It's a basic material, but we do need to paint it. There we go. All right, I think we're done. I have a few more details to work on, but I think we have done more than enough for this guide. So I will see you in the next one when we tackle another of these models. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Take care of yourselves.